Imagine lying in bed beside someone you once craved. The room feels cold, even when your bodies touch. You stare at the ceiling, trapped in a thick fog of unanswered questions. What went wrong? Your thoughts spiral, faster, sharper, with every heartbeat. It's self-doubt. You remember that first thrill of attraction, before the worries set in. Before, am I good enough, stalked your every move. It's invisible poison. The way you start analyzing every word, every glance, every moment of silence. You stopped asking for what you want. Maybe you stopped wanting it all. This is not about hormones. It's not about romance movie tricks or the latest dating app hack. This is about psychology, buried deep in your habits and the secret languages your mind whispers when the lights are out and your guard is down. Tonight, you don't feel sexy. You barely feel human. You've learned to wear a mask in relationships. You joke, you perform, you fake confidence because you think you should. But under that mask, self-doubt grows roots. Maybe your spouse has noticed. Maybe they haven't. You worry they're bored or disappointed, or worse, thinking of someone else. This isn't just insecurity, it's a constant, grinding loop in your mind. You start to analyze moments. Was that touch too quick? Was the kiss empty? Did their eyes flicker with something missing? Your thinking becomes your prison. Communicating becomes a nervous transaction. You want to ask for reassurance, but you bite your tongue. You fear sounding needy. So you drift into silence. You retreat from honest conversations around attraction or intimacy, feeding the very distance you dread. You wonder if this is how emotional cheating begins. Quiet misalignments. Invisible walls. Questions you're afraid to ask. Here's the psychology: self-doubt triggers a cascade. Your brain releases stress hormones. Your body tenses. Your habits shift, even the way you walk, sit, or touch. Your emotions twist into a knot of anxiety and confusion. Sexuality thrives on trust, first, with yourself. When you start believing you're unworthy or uninteresting, you send signals: I don't belong. I don't deserve this touch. That belief seeps into every interaction, dulling desire, killing spontaneity. You see it on their face. Or you think you do. Inside marriages, hidden doubts breed ground for emotional cheating. Why? Because intimacy requires vulnerability. Your self-doubt is a locked door. You wonder if they'd be happier with someone more confident. The urge to compare is magnetic, painful, pointless, but you can't stop. The science of your sadness: neural patterns that reinforce hopeless thinking. You remember early infatuation, wild, unrehearsed, breathtaking. Now, you hesitate. You double-check your words, movements, your very breath. Silent calculations replace playful spontaneity. Every perceived rejection burns 10 times hotter. A yawn, a turned shoulder, a text message left on read, your mind explodes with imagined meanings. You start seeing threats where there are only shadows. Uncertainty is your default setting. If your spouse pulls away, even for a day, your mind writes stories about adultery or losing your place in the narrative of your marriage. The pain is sharp, almost physical. It settles in your chest and gut. And if you crusade for reassurance, it rings hollow. Nothing fills the void. You scroll late at night, looking for answers: relationship forums, advice columns, half-baked psychology hacks. But every solution is temporary because it doesn't rewrite the narrative in your head. Here's the secret nobody admits: self-doubt feeds on silence and shame. You tell yourself to be strong, but you never define what real strength is. You think confidence is a performance. So, you fake smiles and easy jokes around your partner, hiding a fracture that keeps deepening. You read about trust, about honest communication, about rebuilding attraction, but you're scared to try. You feel fragile. You think, if I show my uncertainty, the relationship will break. So, you keep the mask on. You hope things will magically return to the way they were. They never do. Every habit you build around protecting yourself becomes another brick in the wall between you. In marriages, between spouses who've stopped sharing raw doubts, this wall can be fatal. Real, slow-motion divorce happens not with a slammed door, but with thousands of silences. But underneath, you keep hoping. You know there's a better way. If only you could find it. Self-doubt grows cunning with time. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It tells you not to reach for your partner's hand because you might get rejected. It asks, what if you're not wanted? You remember the sting of past letdowns, and now you flinch before any risk at all. Your world shrinks. Physical closeness becomes a luxury you no longer claim. You bury your needs, convinced they're burdens. You talk yourself out of passion, out of simple touches, out of bold communication. And your partner senses it. Something is off, but the problem stays unspoken. That mutual misunderstanding thickens the air between you. You both avoid the talk at the kitchen table, hoping for harmony in silence, but resentment creeps in. You observe other couples, laughing, flirting, alive, and wonder what they have that you lost. Underneath it all, you wonder if you're the problem. If you're too sensitive, too awkward, too much or never enough. These doubts become facts in your mind. Normal habits become distant memories, no more midday texts, no lingering looks across the room. The quiet is deafening. Every glance in the mirror becomes a test. You study your flaws, cataloging every imagined shortcoming. Attraction, once natural and easy, now feels risky. You absorb subtle comments about your body, your habits, your laughter, and let them infect your thoughts. Anxiety sits with you at dinner, rides in the car, steals your sleep at 2 a.m. Simple compliments from your spouse feel complicated. You look nice is decoded a dozen ways. Did they mean it? Are they just being kind? The noise never stops. You read about the psychology of attraction and habit forming. But nothing sticks. Each attempt to reignite spark feels forced, artificial. The magic is gone, or at least, that's what you tell yourself. This is how thinking destroys real moments. When your internal stories run wild, your emotions follow. Your spouse notices your hesitation and, unable to interpret it, may retreat as well. Fear passes silently back and forth, making your relationship a game of emotional chess with no winner. You want to speak honestly. You want to tell your partner what you crave from them, not just sexually, but emotionally. Yet, every time the subject comes up, your throat tightens. What if they laugh, roll their eyes, or, worst of all, don't care? The risk feels towering. Your mind anticipates rejection, so you play it safe. You edit your words, making yourself smaller, less complicated. Communication narrows to logistics, grocery lists, calendar reminders, but the deep stuff rots untouched. Conversations about sexuality and trust die before they're born. Habits form. You avoid conflict, avoid confrontation, especially about intimacy. Emotional cheating becomes easier to imagine than honest discomfort. Both of you become actors, improvising happiness, afraid to touch the jagged edges beneath. Is this marriage? Is this love? Divorce often begins here, in the silence and the things unsaid. Walls grow higher, trust erodes, and nobody really knows why. Cheating isn't always physical. Sometimes it starts with a confession, a smile, a direct message to someone outside your relationship. Why does that happen? Because it's easier to open your soul to someone who's a blank slate, someone who hasn't seen your self-doubt up close. You crave understanding, validation, a reminder that you are desirable and needed. You want to escape critical reflection, to avoid facing your own perceived inadequacy. The thrill of a new conversation becomes a drug. You feel attractive again, safe, if only for a moment. This is how emotional adultery begins. Not with lust, but with an ache to be known and seen, free from the microscope of your own relationship. You hide it, even from yourself, but it's there. The betrayal isn't just of your partner, but of your own abandoned confidence. The pain at home deepens. Spouses sense it: distance, secretiveness, alien energy, and trust cracks, not with thunder but steady, silent pressure. Do you remember your first real rejection? Maybe a partner rolled away. Maybe a request for connection was shrugged off as inconvenient. That wound stuck. You may have told yourself it didn't matter, but your brain remembers every small humiliation. Self-doubt thrives on repetition. Each time rejection visits again, old scars split open. You grow cautious, avoiding anything that might lead to pain. Passion withers. Instead of demanding what you want, you ask for less or nothing at all. You train yourself that desire is dangerous, that your needs are too loud. This is deep psychology, ancient and modern. Kids seek and need reassurance, adults pretend they don't. But the hurt is just as sharp. Relationships starve on this emotional diet. Marriages suffer when spouses tiptoe around the specter of rejection. Sex becomes duty or disappears altogether. But still, the longing stays. Hidden, burning, waiting for a way out. Habits are silent but powerful. Each time you dodge intimacy or hold your tongue instead of speaking your truth, you give self-doubt a little more room. You think you're smoothing things over, protecting your fragile equilibrium. But these daily compromises are slow poison. You start going to bed a little earlier or staying up a little later, just to avoid crossing that awkward gap. You scroll your phone in silence, just catching up, but really you're hiding from the faint ache of disconnection in your marriage. Maybe you find new hobbies, some harmless, some designed to drown out unbearable thoughts about trust, attraction, and what might be missing between you. These habits become familiar company. They become easier than asking for what you want and risking the pain of another letdown. Days blur, and the habits dig in. The relationship, or what's left of it, runs on autopilot, powered by avoidance. This is no way to love. This is how people become roommates, not spouses. Look closely at the script running through your head. I'm not attractive. They're just being polite. I was never their first choice. These thoughts don't announce themselves as lies. They become your truth. It's street-level psychology, as raw as it gets. Your thinking shapes your emotions, and then your actions. Every time you believe you're not enough, you unconsciously act to prove it. Your confidence evaporates in real time. That energy, the magnetic charge of certainty, is replaced with anxious signals your spouse, even if subconsciously, detects. The mutual dance of attraction becomes offbeat. Understanding this script is radical. The human mind is endlessly creative at self-sabotage. It brings old heartbreaks into fresh moments, interrupts potential connection with memories of past failures. But you are not your thoughts. You can observe them. You can change the story, line by painful line. The old story? It kills relationships long before divorce papers are drafted. Trust is fragile. It's not just about keeping secrets or avoiding affairs. It's about believing in your own worth, and the quiet faith that your partner values the real you. When self-doubt rots that internal trust, your partner is left on shifting ground, never sure what will trigger your withdrawal or their own insecurity. You want to rebuild trust, but not just with your spouse, with yourself. That means risking the awkward conversation, admitting confusion or fear, and shedding the armor you wear every day. When you speak honestly, you invite connection. Start small, share a doubt, confess a memory, ask for comfort. Watch closely. The right partner leans in, listens, reassures. There's the beginning of true intimacy, not the glossy, fake confidence of a highlight reel, but the gritty, difficult trust that endures. In marriage, these bricks are laid every time you're honest about what you feel, what you need, and what you're afraid of losing. Words are more than just sounds, they're barriers or bridges. When self-doubt chews on your confidence, language distorts. You hint instead of asking plainly. You dodge the real question with sarcasm, dismiss intimacy with tired jokes, or pretend you don't care about sex or closeness. Your partner responds to the literal words. But the unspoken message, the one vibrating with anxiety, need, and uncertainty, hangs between you. This psychic static cripples both sides of the relationship. Even love, even deep history, can't decode what's left unsaid. There are no magic words, no polished TED Talk phrases that fix it overnight. Street philosophy, the hardest, most honest words are the ones that get stuck in your throat. Say them anyway. The alternative is an emotional stalemate, where both of you lose. True understanding is built out of shared discomfort, not polite half-truths. All the pain, the frustration, the confusion, there's only one way out: communication. And not just more talk, but honest, ferocious clarity. Tell the truth about sex, about cheating, about attraction. Confess the ugly, the yearning, the hurt that festers in silence. Stop using communication as a weapon, collecting grievances like evidence for a trial. Use it for rescue. Say what you're afraid of. Say what you need. Be the first to risk embarrassment. Power shifts when you claim your own needs, loudly, shamelessly. Marriage depends on it. Without bold communication, you just perform. But when you name your doubt, you rob it of its venom. You create space for your partner to be human too, full of uncertainty and longing and hope. Suddenly, intimacy is possible again. There's no shortcut. Only the slow courage of conversation, spoken from the center of who you really are. You wake up one morning and realize it's been months since you've known real closeness. Not just sex, but the touch of genuine intimacy, a look that lingers, a hand finding yours under the table, a sense of safety in each other's presence. You blame stress, work, maybe the kids. Deep down, though, there's a hollowness rooted in unspoken self-doubt. It doesn't happen all at once. Intimacy fades the way daylight dims before dusk. One unresolved slight, one misunderstood silence, 10 moments when you turned away instead of leaning in. These are the markers of slow erosion. The psychology of relationships is a graveyard of missed chances. You might fantasize about someone else, or worse, a different version of yourself, someone bold, certain, magnetic. But you're trapped chasing ghosts of confidence you never really had. The silence grows, each partner receding into their own anxious universe. In the absence of communication and trust, sexuality becomes irrelevant, a relic. This is the breeding ground for emotional affairs, built not on passion but on starvation. Divorce rarely begins with a fight. It begins with a numb, aching quiet. The psychology of men and women is painted as a war of opposites, Mars versus Venus, ancient clichés. But self-doubt does not care about gender. It hijacks everyone. Still, it slips in differently. Men are told desire equals power. When doubt gnaws at their pride, shame follows like a shadow. They hide in bravado or disappear into silence. Women, schooled in sensitivity, start doubting their worth in intimacy, wondering if love and sexuality are threatened by age, stress, or rejection. Gender becomes a script, not a destiny. The habits we inherit about emotional expression, attraction, confidence, and communication either imprison or liberate our relationships. Cheating, of the heart or the body, becomes a desperate search for the validation we deny ourselves. If both sides surrender the masks, the psychological landscape changes. Now, understanding has a place to grow. Now, misunderstanding isn't a threat, but a signal, something to investigate instead of fear. Awareness cuts deeper than any insult. When you finally see the cycle, doubt, withdrawal, craving, resentment, you also see an escape. Your next step isn't to blame your spouse, or even yourself, but to drop the tired narratives. With raw honesty, you choose new habits. Ask for what excites you. Admit what scares you. When the voice of self-sabotage hisses, you pause, listen, then move anyway. This is emotional risk, not recklessness. Liberation is movement. It's shedding the tired choreography of disappointment and leaning into uncertainty. True strength is not in perfect confidence, it's in the willingness to be publicly unsure, to reach for love, not knowing what you'll find. You discover, sexuality and attraction are reclaimed in moments of vulnerability, not accomplishment. By letting the old self-doubt burn out, you make room for something raw and electric to return. Confidence is not a genetic gift. It is a practice. Every time you speak truth, survive a small rejection, and stay loving in the face of old injuries, you create new wiring. Science, neuroplasticity, proves that the brain teaches itself new hope through action. Start with tiny revolutions, look in the mirror with compassion. Speak a need aloud. Allow your partner to see your unfinished self. Catch yourself before old patterns drag you under, then try a different move. Confidence blooms slowly, with each honest effort. In relationships, this is miraculous. Your spouse feels the shift. Trust cracks open new ground. Sexuality stirs, shy, wobbly at first, warmed by the light of realness. Adultery fades as a threat, because you are both being fed instead of starved. You find joy in imperfect closeness, not cinematic romance. You see the beauty in asking, trying, failing, and laughing about it together. A powerful truth, self-doubt never truly disappears. But it no longer controls the script. You feel it, acknowledge it, and choose anyway. You and your partner reclaim your story brushstroke by brushstroke. This is grown-up love, built on risk, grounded in honest communication, pulsing with messy, real-world attraction. You do not chase certainty, you court resilience. You become the author of your own psychological landscape, no longer a victim of old thinking. Tomorrow, when silence hovers or the old wounds ache, you won't turn away. You'll reach out, speak up, and love, awkwardly, bravely, fully. And you'll know, finally, that the only path to shared joy is walking through your own doubt and meeting your partner, unmasked, on the other side. Transformation starts where your silence ends.